the forgotten slaves of Tromelin Island. On a tiny, barren island in the middle of the vast Indian Ocean, a group of people were left to die, forgotten by those who promised to return. For 15 long years, they faced the crushing solitude of isolation, abandoned by the world that had already stolen their freedom. They were survivors, but they were also slaves, taken from their homeland, only to be stranded on the desolate shores of Tromelin Island. This is their story, a story of betrayal, of unimaginable hardship, and of the will to survive even when hope seemed lost. The story of the slaves of Tromelin Island is one of tragedy, endurance, and survival. Set against the vast and merciless expanse of the Indian Ocean, this tale begins with betrayal and despair but ends with an extraordinary testament to the resilience of the human spirit. Let's get more detailed. In 1761, the French slave ship Udall, laden with Malagasy slaves, set sail under the command of Captain Gyaan de Lafargue. The ship was headed from Madagascar to the French colony of Mauritius, with dreams of wealth on the horizon. But fate had other plans. Navigating treacherous waters, the Udall ran aground on the coral reefs surrounding a tiny, desolate island in the middle of the ocean, now known as Tromelin Island. Tromelin was no more than a speck of sand, only 1 square kilometer in size, with no fresh water, no trees, and no shelter, an inhospitable desert in the heart of the ocean. The shipwrecked crew and 80 Malagasy slaves faced an immediate struggle for survival. The Europeans, better equipped and armed, quickly took control of the limited food and water supplies salvaged from the wreck. A cruel abandonment. Under the scorching sun, the Europeans decided that their only hope of survival lay in building a boat from the remains of the Udall. They promised the slaves that they would return to rescue them once they reached the French colonies. But time was slipping away. After several weeks of brutal labor, the Europeans completed their makeshift boat. One fateful morning, they boarded it and sailed away, leaving the 80 Malagasy men, women, and children behind on that forsaken island. With only a few tools, broken ship parts, and torn cloth, the Malagasy were abandoned to an uncertain fate. Weeks turned into months, and the promise of rescue faded into a distant memory. 8 years of survival. The Malagasy slaves, left with nothing, were faced with the harsh reality of their isolation. Yet they refused to give in to despair. Using what little they had, they began to craft tools from the wreckage and managed to build shelters from coral and ship debris. They survived by catching sea turtles, gathering eggs, and collecting rainwater. The island's desolation could not break their will. Years passed. One by one, many of them succumbed to hunger, disease, and the endless solitude of Tromelin. But their spirit endured. In the face of insurmountable odds, the Malagasy slaves held on to life with a quiet and profound dignity, sustained by the hope that one day, a ship might appear on the horizon. The rescue. It was not until 1776, 15 years after the shipwreck, that the French naval officer Chevalier de Tromelin finally arrived on the island. To his astonishment, he discovered 7 women and 1 child who had survived for all those years. These final survivors were all that remained of the original 80 who had been left behind. De Tromelin, deeply moved by their story, rescued the survivors and returned them to Mauritius. The island would forever bear his name, but the true legacy of Tromelin Island lies in the indomitable strength of the human spirit, a spirit that defied cruelty, abandonment, and the hostile forces of nature for 15 long years. The story of the slaves of Tromelin Island remained largely forgotten for centuries. However, in recent years, it has been resurrected by historians and archaeologists who have sought to uncover the truth of what happened on that remote island. Excavations have revealed remnants of the huts the Malagasy built, as well as tools and personal items, serving as a testament to their resilience. The Tromelin slave story is now seen as a powerful narrative of survival, defiance, and the enduring human spirit in the face of overwhelming adversity. It stands as a reminder of the brutal realities of the transatlantic slave trade, the exploitation of human lives, and the resilience of those who were forced to endure its horrors. The island itself, though small and barren, has become a symbol of this extraordinary chapter in history, a silent witness to the survival of the forgotten slaves of Tromelin. The slaves of Tromelin Island, forgotten by their captors but remembered by history, stand as symbols of perseverance in the face of abandonment and the boundless power of hope, even in the darkest of times. That's it for today, guys. Comment below what you'd like to see in my next video. And make sure to like, share, and subscribe.